Hello, welcome to this bite-sized workshop on past lives. This is an introduction to past lives, and if we think about reincarnation is the cycle of lives. But perhaps it's much more than that, and I'm going to read from the Oxford English Dictionary's definition of karma, because we can't talk about reincarnation without talking about karma. And what it says is the sum of a person's actions in a previous state of existence viewed as deciding his or her fate in future existences or destinies. So that's a definition from an English dictionary. But perhaps karma is a lot more than that, and karma's often quite misunderstood. We often sort of talk about things to do with karma, like judge as you should be judged. How you act is the consequences you will receive. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And the list goes on and on of these anecdotes of how to behave well and how to interact with everybody. So not just within those Eastern philosophies, but also within Western philosophies, there is that sense of take responsibility for what you're doing, take responsibility for your actions. So when it comes to karma and past lives, I feel that's quite a grey area. I don't want to get involved with responsibility and consequences of karma. I perhaps want to look at it from the point of view of maybe as a soul we choose to come into this world having some idea of what the life we're choosing will be like, what it will teach us, what we will gain from it, how it will impress on our soul, whether it will make us a better person or not. And if we can grow from those experiences. So an analogy might be before an individual starts university, they'll have acquired knowledge prior to that, and they'll have some idea of what they're going to learn and what they're going to understand to attain their diploma, degree, or maybe go on to a master's. So they know before they begin, by choosing which university to go to, which place of learning to be, and they kind of realise that while they're there as an individual, but there'll be other students as well, there'll be other people that they can mix with. There will also be people of responsibility, lecturers, tutors, and there will also be the system, the organisation where you live and how you live and so on. So all those things are kind of things that you know are going to be where you're putting yourself. But what we don't know before we start is exactly how it will all unfold. So I want to make the premise that as a soul we choose to come into the world as an infant. And anecdotally, doing a therapy session with an individual once, at the very, very last part of looking at that past life, this individual remembered entering a river that led to the sea. It was an estuary, and he was holding the hand of another soul. And before the session was over, that individual remembered coming into the world as if coming off a surfboard, as if sort of being thrown onto the land from the water, but still holding hands. But this time, it wasn't a spirit. It was another child, another infant, another baby. And of course, what this person was relating was their twin. So that's not something that everybody experiences, but it's quite interesting because not only was that person relaying a past life energy, but was also recalling the energy of how they came into the world. And then, of course, all those memories from that past life fade. And when we tap into past lives, it's quite by accident rather than by design, because we're designed not to remember what we choose. We're designed to come into the world to learn those lessons, but without any aid. So the analogy of perhaps being a student going to university is a little bit flawed, because after all, the student going to university can rely on what they've learned before, whereas the infant starts from scratch. Now, what is it that makes us think that we've lived many lives? Well, anecdotal stories. There's a very nice one that I sort of like to hear, and I like to believe it, of in Tibet, the current Dalai Lama, as a child, his home was visited by priests because the previous Dalai Lama had passed away, and some years later they were searching for the next Dalai Lama. They were searching for the child that had come into the world. And they'd visited many villages, many towns, looking for the incarnation. And when they went to his house, and the Dalai Lama tells this story with a glint in his eye and a smile on his face, of how one of the priests was wearing beads, and as a small child he reached out and grabbed the beads and insisted, "They're mine, they're mine." And, you know, this is the beginning of the recognition of the spirit of the previous Dalai Lama being in the current Dalai Lama. Now, I love that story, and I really want to believe it's true. But what is important is that that is not the only anecdotal story that we hear. There are many. I've often spoken to people when I talk to them about reincarnation and past lives, and they talk about how, as a small child, they remembered a different life to the life they have now. Or parents of children will sometimes say that before the age of 3 or 4, when a child starts nursery or preschool or even reception, they talk about other people in the family that they couldn't possibly know, or another family that they belong to, or visiting a place and having a recognition. And there's this other anecdote of a young Indian girl that feverishly insisted that she was a man, and in this past life she had been murdered, but as this man she had left a wife and children. He was a shop owner, and he wanted to sort of, through this girl, because she was him, wanted to sort of make that contact with the family again. And after a number of rigmaroles and so on and so forth, eventually an uncle of hers believed her story, found the place she was talking about, found the lady in the shop, and eventually it was arranged for the girl to go and meet the owner of this shop. And of course there was suspicion at first from the widow of the man that had passed away, when this child is talking about things of their life before. And the clincher in this story is this girl went to a place where she removed a tile, and beneath the tile moved some earth, and beneath that earth there was a box, and in that box there was money and there was jewellery. And of course she just gave it to the widow, the lady of the house, the shop, and that was it. There was nothing else. There was no other motive. And, you know, it evolved into a good friendship between those two families, though they lived in villages miles and miles apart. Anyway, there's lots of anecdotal stories. I quite like the story of, well, it was made into a B movie, a film, The Search for Bridie Murphy. And that was a B movie that was set up as a kind of drama that contained hypnotism, so it was supposed to be a suspense. But within it, there was a grain of truth about a lady that remembered a life as an American lady, this is, that remembered a life as a young Irish woman who got married and grew to an old age. And, you know, there was a lot of detail that the story related that they went through and researched. Now, again, is it just a film or is there a grain of truth in there? The point is that looking at past lives, looking at reincarnation, let's have an open mind and let's see where we go and let's see what we find. So this is just the start. So I'm going to close for now because we want to keep these bite-sized, and I will return soon with the next part of a bite-sized workshop on past lives. Thank you so much.